everyone. So if you've never met me before, which is probably very possible, my name is Trevor Boland and I work as an Assistive Technology Officer in DCU. So in that role, I have the privilege of serving students with disabilities and matching them to technologies that hopefully they use for different academic purposes. So these are the main reasons why students every day try or hopefully meet me. So obvious kind of cases of note-taking, organisation, writing and reading challenges. So reading is one of the top challenges. So because you're librarians or librarian associated, just thought maybe reading would be something that could be like a common thread between myself and yourselves. So in this, I talk a little bit about my own dyslexia, and the reason why I talk to students in particular about my dyslexia is that I am finding different ways of reaching students. So I don't know about G, but they are a tough cohort to connect with. And as I get older, they get younger, and we're becoming separate entities. So I keep revising every year about how I approach them and try to create like a meaningful connection with them. So as I'm getting older, I have to disclose or be more vulnerable to them. So if they're going to be in a session with me for an hour and they're going to be disclosing their disabilities, I feel the need to also be equally vulnerable and share about all my terrible experiences when I was a student, how I was a mess, I had no organizational structure, terrible with timelines, deadlines, proofreading, writing, and it's fantastic. They get such a laugh out of me. It's so cool. And then we get to the nitty-gritty, where they disclose then to me what they find challenging. And so invariably reading comes up as one of the top challenges. So my go-to support then is something in Microsoft Reader or Microsoft Office, and it's called Immersive Reader. And it is a fantastic tool that's inbuilt into Word that reads back their Word documents. And I sort of trick them a little bit as I then try to get them discussing proofreading and how often they do it. And more often than not, they say they don't. And it would be a very low percentage that would even like proofreading, and never mind even say that they do it. So more often than not, they get the assignment done, they submit it, they don't want to read it, and that's their way of just coping with just the submission and then moving on to the next task. So my aim with Immersive Reader is then to show how I use it and then to show them possible ways that they can embed Immersive Reader into their day-to-day life. And sometimes this is a revelation for students, that Immersive Reader means that, they can hear back their assignment. So for proof listening, it can be useful, so rather than proofreading. And then another thing about reading is sometimes they associate reading with just sitting down all the time. So for me, a lot of the challenge is about breaking those assumptions that students have and get them to think about Immersive Reader as something that they can play back the text in their Word document and they can walk around the room. They can just stroll around, they can be those kinesthetic learners, and Immersive Reader is doing it all back. So there's one lecturer in Trinity, Joanne Banks, and she gets Immersive Reader to read out her student assignments while she's in the kitchen preparing her dinner. And I think that's a great example about how not only staff use it, but students can use it, and we can move around. We don't have to sit. And that sometimes is an eye-opener for students when it comes to this activity called reading that they should be doing. So within this, I tell students then about the tools that I use every day. When it comes to organisation, I live on my Google Calendar. If it's not on my calendar, I just don't do it. It doesn't get done, and then I'll eventually lose my job. So my whole calendar is linked with tasks I need to do every day, reminders, things that I forget. A lot of, and then within that, so my own challenges then are my short-term memory, shockingly bad, and that's okay. So I have little strategies using this app called Google Keep, and that keeps me on track. So then by sharing all these kind of tips about technology with students then, that encourages them to think or disclose, or we have conversations about how they don't use technology. So one of the assumptions that I make is that they bookmark when they're in their Chrome browser. And then I realize actually they don't even know what a browser is. And then we don't even know what bookmarking is. And then I ask them how do they search for things that they might have found last week. And then they tell me they just try to re-find it in Google using the search terms. And it's brilliant because it's a whole sea of chaos that they navigate every day. And then out of these conversations with students, now in group scenarios, when I go into a class And I humiliate myself, first of all, and I tell them about all the bad things that I used to do as a student in terms of organisation and assignments, not outside that. And then in terms of then opening up the conversation about, the proofreading and so on, but it's a very small percent. Out of a group of about 30 to 50 students, I might get a third who know about what a browser is. Just a browser, never mind even bookmarking, might be about a third. And then when it comes to proofreading, I might get, on a good day, maybe 10% of the class on a good day. So out of a group of 30 students, I would say roughly maybe 3 on average would like proofreading, and that would be, I know, a normal number that I would come across. So even their attitudes and behaviours towards reading, and in a lot of the cases when it comes to even proofreading assignments, it's that lastminute.com approach that they just got their first version done just before the submission and they don't even allow themselves time to proofread. And that's one of the biggest obstacles that challenges me every day. So I don't know, you probably have your own experiences as well about students' attitudes to reading and those conversations that they're disclosing to you, and then maybe they're using technology, maybe they're not, maybe they earmark time during the day for reading, I don't know, but I'm slowly becoming. And then, when I talk to students about technology, we talked a little bit about procrastination, and we have all these amazing apps that I have that help me procrastinate. And they're brilliant. I can stream my distractions anytime I want. It's amazing, and students love hearing that. And then we talk about all these other things, and social media and the doom scrolling, and how they have to have the 2 to 3 hours of doom scrolling a day. That's their way, and that's fine. That's okay. I doom scroll for about half an hour to 45 minutes a day, and that's okay. It helps me unwind. But if it's 2 to 3 hours a day, that reading time is kind of eaten into because of the doom scrolling. So then there's a little bit of behaviour changes that we just chatted a little bit when it comes to those boring assistive technologies that help us to be productive. And then we go a little bit more into it. I don't know why I put Bumble up there. I did not use it, so I don't know. It seemed like a good idea at the time. But anyway, students, they're distracted with all these kind of stuff on it. And then I come along with my technology tips, and I'm competing against all this fabulous digital distraction, and I'm trying to cut through all that noise, and sometimes I think I'm getting through to them, and a lot of times I'm not definitely getting through to them. And say even maybe students I have one blind student, she's breaking my heart for the last few months. We've given her an amazing iPad. It can help her in theory with reading, and she's resisting, and she's doing such a good job of avoiding me consistently about how to use the iPad. And then when I do meet her, she tells me about, oh yeah, that reading tech that you told me the iPad does. I downloaded this, and I was like, you don't need to download an app to get you to read an iPad. It just has it inbuilt into it, and then we have to unpack the app that she's downloaded, and then we have to introduce the reading app, and then that only took 6 months to do. But we're getting there, and it's great. So there's a lot of just resisting of use of technology, because it's, these new behaviours with technology as well, they're really entrenched in their behaviours. And I don't know why, but that's a whole other presentation. So one thing I've discovered is this inattentional blindness. I know I searched it, and I know I'm so proud of myself because I never search new definitions. And this, I suppose, is something I find myself falling into, is that I am usually a bit of a mess, to be honest. So I am terrible at seeing things that are in front of me. So because I wear eyeglasses, I generally have them on top of my head or here, and I've taken ages to find it. And I'm finding this term is sort of clicking with me when it comes to young people and technology, because the obvious, like that example of the blind student, not realizing the iPad has this amazing inbuilt reading tool. Sometimes the solutions are right in front of them, and they're just not seeing them or identifying them. And it's becoming something of a challenge, because I've been in this AT world, assistive technology world, for 10 years. So 10 years ago, I thought we were going to be so ahead by now that students are going to be of course they're just going to use their personal phones for education, and it's just going to do it, and they're going to be amazing at it. And I actually find we've gone a little bit backwards, and that's why I'm being explicit in asking, say, groups of students about what is a browser, and then ask them really boring questions about making them think about why do they use a particular browser. And then a lot of them say Safari, and then I have a little session about telling them how Safari's terrible. And then it's hilarious, and then I talk about Google Chrome and all that, and you're in a Google institution, why don't you use Chrome? And then they kind of go, oh yeah, maybe we should use the Chrome browser. Then I tell them a few tricks about what you can do with Chrome and that, and then sort of it shifts a little bit. So I try to make the invisible visible, really. That's essentially what I'm trying to do. It's like AT magic. So through the technology magic shows that we have, I talk a little bit, of course, about my glasses, but invariably, through the discussions, my eyeglasses are actually one of my key assistive technologies that I use every day as well. And without it, it's not a good experience having me go through a working day without my eyeglasses. I have done it a few times. But luckily, my work colleague Barbara has this amazing pair of green, beautiful glasses that she shares with me when I forget mine. So it's hilarious. So I look like Mr. Majika on those days. So a lot of these things about assistive technology exist right in front of us that we don't name as assistive technology, that somehow, and this is my own personal burden about assistive technology, is that by not labeling it, that culturally there's this kind of disconnect between all these technologies that can help us and support us because we don't name these techs. Sorry, and that's me going on. Sorry, I'm on my soapbox about assistive technology. And why I'm so passionate about it is because it really makes a difference for anyone to help them just be that better version of themselves from day to day, both in their personal lives and their work lives. And that fundamentally, by engaging with these technologies, that they're transferable to the workplaces, and this is the scary place where I'm taking my students to right now, is that these tools, say in Microsoft Office, like Immersive Reader that I use, they exist in the workplace. So they can carry on that successful technology experience that they've had, and it can help them be successful in that working experience. So these transitions, or that transferability of technology is something that doesn't click with them a little bit. But anyway, when they're working for 50 years of life, eventually they'll have loads of time for it to click. So my way of encouraging the students to really try and connect with these technologies that assist them in reading, writing, note-taking, being organized, is a resource that I made in DCU, and it's called Compass. I just love imagery. So anyway, I use Compass as an image to help them navigate these technologies. So for a lot of them, these technologies for people with disabilities really make a difference in terms of helping them belong and engage in that academic environment. And for students without disabilities, it's just a productivity tool that helps them anyway. So whether we do or we don't have disabilities, is still great and fantastic because we have tech that's just everywhere, that it is visible-ish to all of us. And that we can connect with. Oh, sorry, I have a video. Oh, sorry. Oh. So hopefully it'll play, sort of, maybe. I don't know. Oh, or is it? No. No? Don't know. Oh, wait a second. Do I have to click onto that? No. Where's the... I know. Oh, there I am. Yay! Okay. No, that didn't work. No. Alicia! Yeah. Oh, I embedded it into the presentation because I was very fancy schmancy. But anyway, so the video, in short, is really about telling you, I don't know. It was a great video, oh my God. So the video anyway is really about how in this tool that I've made with H5P, I offer choice about how the students learn about each of these technologies. So because I'm a big UDL person, if anybody hasn't heard about Universal Design for Learning, it's about offering choice about how we engage and learn about different stuff. So for me, I've given choice about how students learn about each technology. So my bias is video. Love video, could watch videos until cows come home, and that's my key way of learning about something. But students, for some reason, insist on being individuals that have different opinions from me, and it's annoying. It's annoying, because why can't we all be the same? So anyway, so the other options I give students when it comes to learning about technology is a video or text. Some students prefer text, or an image and a text piece, and that works for them. So hopefully, all these different types of learners that we have, who are video, text people, image people, kind of, really, maybe, or they have no excuses now to learn about assistive technology and how amazing and powerful it is. So what I've done is that with that resource that I've made with H5P is that I'm sharing these files so that other people can find out that they might be able to embed these SCORM files. So H5P, I can export and have exported my stuff as SCORM files, and that then ye can download not only the files, but then you can edit them. That sounds better in my head. So you can edit them, and then you can tweak them for your own course, and then upload them into your own VLEs. So that might be Moodle, Blackboard, Canvas, whatever LMS system you're using. And then hopefully, you can create your own compasses or compass versions and just substitute out the videos of my voice and me talking annoyingly about technology, and that you can then just tweak it yourselves, and that's okay. And within Compass, there's stuff about, there's a big section about Microsoft tools, big section about Google tools. There's a little bit about Apple. I have to expand that because students, as I'm finding for the last 10 years, they have these beautiful iPhones, and that they never explore the amazing inbuilt features in Apple phones that have dictation, so you speak with your voice and it generates text, and it has amazing ability to read out text as well in different ways, and it's fantastic. Students don't know, but anyway, iPhones are great for social media, and that's what matters. So, and then in terms of UDL, Compass is really trying to embrace this. So over the next year, I'm going to try to even make it more engaging for students, because I want more student voice in it. So I'm finding that a bit challenging to get students to, so putting out the invitation to students to contribute and having them represented is turning into a challenge, because like they're tougher. They're tougher to get on board and to engage with this. But I'm getting there slowly. So hopefully by next year I've got student voices about technology to help other students to connect more with technologies. And then, so I put this in randomly, so I'm a big fan of this term. So reality pedagogy is really one of the things that I'm founding on. So not only UDL, Universal Design for Learning, but reality pedagogy is something that I came across in a UDL webinar, I think. And it's really about it's a really grounded approach to pedagogy, which I didn't realize how relevant it was to me until I was confronted with it. And then I realized my attitude to assistive technology has changed over 10 years, because young people are definitely changing. They're evolving. They are far more critical in a very short space of time about whether something is relevant or not relevant to them. So I've had to change, and I've had to be way more dynamic than I was 10 years ago. 10 minutes ago? Well, okay, maybe no, 10 years ago. So, so they are tough. Like, if I can't connect with them and make technology seem interesting and relevant to them, in the first few minutes, they're just signed out. I've lost them, there's no point. So and that's one of the reasons why I tell them about my own dyslexia and tell them about how much of a mess I am, but how I've come so much forward after 30 years of learning technology, because that connects with them. And then they're okay about them disclosing, because I've made a complete fool of myself, and that's okay. It breaks down the barrier. Oh yeah, so eventually I'm getting to the bit about the interesting reading bit. Okay, so commuting is like, I'm sure everyone is doing, like the commuting is happening. Oh God, it's just, anyway, it's a layered issue about just cost of living, all that sort of thing. So my top tip for our commuters is Census Access. So it's a tool that converts that Word document or that PDF into an MP3. There's free versions online, and someone was talking to me a little bit earlier about that free version. Blackboard Ally do a free version, that was it, yeah. So in DCU, we pay for this fabulous Census Access. So students can upload that reading, convert it into an audio file, and then, instead of doom scrolling, they can listen back to that text. So we're having a bit of success kind of trying to embed that behavior into the students, because invariably they have long commutes. And my selling point is, like, if they can just capitalize on that commute time for the reading for the next day or for whatever assignment they're working on, then when they go home, they've done the work, they can switch off and they can go to Netflix or Bumble or whatever it is, I don't know, but they can just enjoy themselves. So using that commuting time, and for me 10 years ago I never thought I'd be talking about capitalizing on commuting time with students, but the behaviors of students are changing. So that kinesthetic experience of reading. So, you know, reading can be seen as a sitting down experience. That, for a lot of students, just isn't connecting with them. So again, we're seeing rises in, say, disabilities. So ADHD in particular, we're seeing that really steeply climb in about the last 3 or 4 years in particular. So for those kind of maybe ADHD students, a certain bit of walking around can be good. So if they're a kinesthetic learner, immersive reader, in Word, can read back that text, and it frees their legs up. And also if they download the app of Microsoft Office Word, Immersive Reader allows them to listen back to the text as they walk around and go for their 10-minute quick high-powered stroll or whatever it is that they have to do or can do, just to help their own well-being. So I'm trying to embed these new behaviours into them. And then, I just love these two apps. So I love this conversation with students again, like, you know that place down at the end of the campus is called the library? Well, if you use these two apps down there, so Seeing AI, totally free, amazing app, and then Lookout, Google app, totally free. If they download them, they can like take photographs of the text in the books. I don't know if that's a copyright issue. But anyway, let's just ignore that sort of issue. And then these apps will read out the text in those photographs. And I tell students, okay, if you can't afford copying, that's okay. You don't need to photocopy. You just download the apps, photograph the books, and then when you're on the bus or the train or whatever it is, these apps will read back the text. And I was like, oh my God, that's fantastic, that's great. And so I'm pretty sure they don't do it. But anyway, well, they're talking to me. They sound like they are actually going to do it. So maybe they do, I don't know. But it's, you know, it's another possibility of them being able to read effectively. So hopefully they're doing it. And then the final one, my partner is a manager. So he has this really annoying phrase, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it, and I hate it every day. It's like something is said where about this stupid phrase. But anyway, it sort of crept into my AT life. And I realised actually with students, one of the reasons why they might engage in reading is that they just automatically assume, oh, this article is going to take like 3 hours, I'm thinking. Just don't have the energy for it, so I'm going to like do something totally different, maybe doom scroll for a while or whatever. So what I tell the students now is actually just measure it. Measure the amount of text that you actually have to read and get a realistic picture about what that reading time is going to be like. So this one, called wordstotime.com, gives you 3 different speeds. So if they're a slow reader, that's okay. If they're average or fast, and they just try it, and they can compare it to see what kind of reading speed they are. And then, because then they can measure the amount of time that would potentially be needed to actually read something, then they can they can mark that amount of time in their calendar or whatever it is, and then just know that this is going to take 25 minutes, and that's okay, because then, you know, I can have something to eat, go for a stroll, and that gives them control over, you know, what that reading experience is going to be like in terms of length. And actually, that's been a bit of a game changer, to be honest. So these 4 simple reading tools, I invite you to totally plagiarize what I've just said, bring it back to your own institutions. You take the presentation, you can change that silly picture of me at the front of it, use the PowerPoint for your own means, and just don't credit me in the slightest. I'm fine about that. And then your manager thinks you're amazing, and they give you promotion, and then you can email me about how you're earning more money than me. Haha, Trev, in your face, that's okay. So that's it. But all these new reading tools have really come about because of this UDL simple phrase about this +1 approach. So almost in every conversation I'm having with a student, I'm coming away with a +1 myself about understanding how they think, how they behave every day, and then trying to impart that learning then about that student experience to other people as well, and then inform it into Compass, and, you know, so anyway, so there's a cycle, well, hopefully not a vicious cycle. But anyway, and then invariably come back to that question then about this assistive technology lark that's around us, that hopefully through talking about these technologies, how they're around, where they're available, how so many of them are free and just open to all of us, that hopefully the invisible is eventually going to become a little bit more visible, and that we're going to see more possibilities. So this conversation will hopefully change to why can't we find this assistive technology, but we're finding it slowly but surely, and that's my dream, to make assistive technology more visible to young people in particular. And I think that's about it. How am I doing for time? I don't know. Partly I'm on time. Pardon?
You heard it. So you're 3 minutes.
Oh, 3 minutes. Oh my God. So, okay, crochet hooks. If you find under your chair, bring it out. We're going to get started. So 5 loops, double crochet now. Okay. Thank you. That's it. Okay.